Welcome back to Deep Thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're covering another movie. And I know that some of you get pissed off, but hopefully you got a whole new renewal of all the space program videos or subject matter. So hopefully you're good for another movie. I just did Meet John Doe, right? If you're new, the reason why I'm doing movies is that these movies are crucial to the way the world should either be working, which is very rare, like Meet John Doe, or where it's going. I can tell you, other than two fan movies I've got, which is Tron and Blade Runner, which are just, I'm very close to those franchises. I'm very close to the people that made those movies. I made those two simply because I got information that's cool. Andromeda Strain, Looker, Logan's Run, THX 1138, Rollerball 1976. These are movies that you need to watch. They are movies that you need to watch so often that you could quote it to another person. Once you get to that level, you don't need to watch it again, except they're just fabulous movies, right? As you know, today's movie is going to be Branded. Now let me explain to you Branded. The reason why I'm covering Branded is that it was a predictive programming movie that I think was actually the byproduct of someone seeing what was coming and simply writing it down and making a movie about it, not an insider necessarily doing anything for the film. It was utterly and completely panned by the critics. Ebert understandably hated the film, which we'll get into in a second here. This movie is showing you things that, for the most part, have already occurred before they actually occurred in a large manner. The film was released in 2012. You have to do the scientific differential in your brain from today to 2012 and then look at what this film was talking about and what actually ended up occurring in 2014, 2016, 2018, 2-year increments of growth. They predicted a huge portion of what was going to happen. And I think they might actually have something that's coming up that is the finale of the film. But for you short attention span folks that are new to the show, you don't understand what Deep Thoughts is, I'll give you a little preview, okay? I'll give you two things, okay? There's more than two things. They're going to make fat the new fabulous. In 2012, this was a joke. But today it's not a joke because it's the way everything is. Make being obese and unhealthy a fad. The other one is to use reality shows to smuggle in those horrible ideals, plus a whole shit ton of other things, right? It's the Trojan horse into your brain. I get you addicted to some stupid reality show, which is anything but reality, right? Reality shows are completely and utterly scripted. Not exactly every single word, but every single moment. So when you think someone fought or you think this is a stake and all that other crap, it's untrue. How do I personally know that? And you're like, who the fuck are you? Blah, blah, blah. Well, okay, so I've been in and around Hollywood for the last 25 years of my life. If I don't know a cameraman, I know a script guy. I know two giant producers of massive shows that live on multi-million-dollar mansions just a few miles south of me. I know for a fact, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you, these shows are fake, and they've always been fake. And I'm going to save the rest of what's going to reveal itself for what's coming, because the film is actually pretty clever. Now, when you first watch this film, if you're like me, I was doing something else while I was watching it. It's probably very few of you would ever do that. I was completely confused what this was about. But then it grew on me. It grew on me like it hit me so hard and so subliminal. I was like, oh my God, that's what's happened. That's what that movie I watched, which was free on Netflix, which you cannot stream right now. It's on every streaming service that I know of, but you can't stream it. It says unavailable. Yes, you could buy the DVD if you still have a DVD player. Once they killed DVD, once they killed owning media for anyone in Gen X and below, well, they don't give a crap if you could buy the DVD. You won't. But this thing grew on me. Then I watched it again, preparing for this show. I've seen it twice now to prepare for this show. I wasn't paying attention much to the script itself as much as what it was revealing For what it was revealing, it was close to like a 9 for me, from a 1 to 10 chart. Now, I just rewatched it again tonight to prepare my notes. What I typically do is just watch it and ingest it. And then I watch it super slowly with the player, and I got it off of BitTorrent. And it took me a long time to find valid BitTorrent, areas to get it down from. You can't get it anywhere digitally. But I watched it again. Okay, here's the thing. I like the changes in the script. The script is a bit like an old noir film. It has narration, something that was the first version of Blade Runner had, and then it was something that the studios imposed on Ridley Scott, who didn't want to put Harrison Ford narrating the movie. I think it's great when he does it, because he only does it a couple times. This film only does it a couple times. And because the film is achieving really huge goals for the actual actor, it makes sense that they're narrating a little bit, because you're kind of watching, for all intents and purposes, a novel being unwound into a visual form. The list of actors are phenomenal, which we're going to get into. 2 actors I've never seen before. This is a Russian-American film. It is directed and written by 2 gentlemen. They shared both roles. I think they nailed it, but the official critics of films, which are the reason why all of your films suck right now, is because they swayed the studios. They swayed the audience, and the studios started caring about what the audience thought, who had never been to film school and never understood any of the DNA of the greatest films ever made on planet Earth. And of course, the studios got infiltrated by people that didn't have any film degrees, didn't have any film history, didn't know anything about film, telling directors and writers what is cool. I've been in these meetings myself at Paramount, at Fox. I've sat in rooms with complete morons telling certified geniuses who've already created cult classic movies, right? They're completely validated. What is this stupid movie you got? This is a dumb thing, blah, blah, blah. When they've done nothing. Not even a short film. Nothing, right? That's Hollywood today. But when I watched it a second time, or really technically a third time, I think the script's probably a 7.5 to an 8. It's good. It has some actual symbolism I completely missed the first time I ever watched it. I wrote a film for the Irish god Cuchulainn, and there's symbology in this film from Cuchulainn, which is a 2500 BC storyline. It's interesting. I completely missed it the first time I ever watched it. When I watched it the second time for the show research, I was blown away. I watched it again, I'm more blown away. Oh my gosh, they brought back some old storylines, some old rituals that are ancient, right? Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be some, clinical excuse why this film is no longer available for streaming. I think what's going to take place is that as soon as this last play, which is the finale of this film, we're going all the way to the end this time, unlike Meet John Doe. I'll warn you, before we get there. They're going to want to use the third act of this movie, or what I would write as the fourth act, as something that's going to occur in the real world. And they don't want you to see it was in a movie before it happens. So they're postponing or delaying or suspending its streaming capabilities until after it's done. Now, the film was distributed by a company called Roadside Attractions. It's the first little clip, when they run the little credits at the front. The film is put together by 2 gentlemen, James Bradshaw and Alexander Dularon. Again, as the writers and directors. I really, really think that what they did was they created a cult classic film. They took risks, they changed the formula, and all these critics that basically say all the films suck. They want to complain about everything, but they don't contribute to any solutions. Pan the film, which is insane. The 2 actors I'd never seen before are the 2 primary actors. There's a gentleman named Misha. I'd never seen him before, and I've never seen him since, but his name is Ed Stoppard. Stoppard. Abby, his love interest, is played by Lily Sablinski. Interesting thing about her is that she got into Hollywood She's this amazing woman. She looks like Helen Hunt. She looks like Helen Hunt's hot sister, to be honest. And I hate to objectify her in that way, but she essentially figured out that she wanted to have a family. And she said, I'm out. Hollywood is trying to push me into pervert land, and I don't want to have anything to do with it. So she left Hollywood. She is as talented as Helen Hunt. She's slightly more beautiful. She must be like 5'10". She's a tall gal, because Ed is not a short guy. And she's taller than him in most of the shots. And they just let it roll. It was great. They let it be organic. The amazing actor Jeffrey Tambor plays a character named Bob Gibbons. Jeffrey has done tons of stuff, from Muppet movies to serious films. This guy was part of Arrested Development. He was the father in Arrested Development. Great guy, amazing actor. He just brings it, right? And then we have this little actor named Max von Sydow, who plays Joseph Pascal. And what's weird about it is when you go up to IMDb, they call him the marketing guru, not Joseph Pascal. That's his character's name. Really weird. In fact, IMDb is getting super lazy. They're putting first names to the cast characters and not their last names, even though in this particular movie, the first and last names are spoken. The other company involved with this movie is called TNT, just a company we don't know. But they do this beautiful logo that's embedded in the film. It's really cool. It's embedded in the background of the film during a couple shots. So, let's begin Branded. Let me give you like a paragraph of what this movie is going to be about. I'm going to have to give you the first half of this film, and it will seem more like a film that you're like, why the hell is this dude covering this film? Then the second half of the film, I need you to imagine a fist on a throttle just pushing it to maximum, because it's going to change a lot midway through this film. This is about a kid who grows up to be a marketing genius. And he gets kind of wound up in a few weird things on the side that aren't really involved with marketing. They're involved with some intelligence agency stuff. And he's witness to a death that really shocks him. And it's a hero's journey. If you know anything about script writing or storytelling, Joseph Campbell kind of stuff. He is, born into his problem. He ends up running off to get his boon. And then he comes back to kick almighty ass, okay? And it's the second half that's going to start just hitting on all pistons. But there's stuff in the first half, too, where it all gets boiling. But a little boy is sleeping on a bench at night. And he wakes up. And he's kind of in this, kind of a park, kind of a plaza, not quite sure what it is. It's technically in the storyline, but you got to look on Wikipedia to find this particular storyline because it's not narrated in the movie. He's in the early 80s when this child event occurs to him. He looks up in the sky and he sees the stars all kind of align and create this bull. Yes, a male cow. A bull turn and look at him. And he's like, oh my gosh, what the heck's going on, right? He's a little kid. He doesn't quite know. I think he's probably about 10 to 12. And he gets up and he starts running past a giant line of people that you assume it's some sort of USSR sort of line waiting for food, but you're not quite sure what it is. It never defines itself. And as he's running past, it's raining. And he gets struck by lightning. And everyone's watching. He hits the ground, of course. He's sizzling. And an old Russian woman, not terribly old, but she comes up to him and rolls him over. Of course, everyone thinks he's dead. And just being a Russian woman, she just starts slapping his face. Come on, kid, wake up. And he wakes up. So he's struck by lightning after seeing this bull form its face out of the stars. And he's okay. But the very next thing you see is a giant plate on the screen, meaning a plate of text, a screen of text. And it says Mockba, M-O-C-K-B-A 2017. Now, what's interesting about 2017 is the film was released in 2012. So it's like near future, And And Misha, who's our main character, he's a man. Misha is looking on his cell phone. He's stuck in traffic. There's a lot of stuck in traffic in this particular movie. So he's kind of paralyzed there, and he looks at his phone, and he's looking at a promo that was texted to him. This for something called Belarus. It's some new movie or something coming out here. And his job as a marketing expert has been to make a trailer for this that appeals to him. And he sees this awful trailer that the studio just cut, and that his firm cut. But he's on his way to a location. So this is sort of like, you don't know what that thing's about right away. But he drives to this new location, and he goes to like a theater. It's kind of odd. And he walks into the seats, and he meets this gorgeous woman named Abby, played by Lily. And he's like, I recognize you, right? You're like Bob's niece or something, right? And Bob's the boss of this marketing institute. Well, it turns out that this event is an award event. It's a ad agency of award event that's everyone's invited. And they have this quick conversation. Of course, they're hitting it off. The chemistry's pretty good. But they call his name, Misha. He stands up to get the award, and suddenly Bob is popping out of the back of the theater, and they call his name too. He's looking around like, what the hell? The award's for me, but Bob, my boss, is going to come up and get the award. What the hell's going on here? So he goes up, and of course, Bob's like, hey, Misha, come up to the stage. We're going to get this together. And they're up there together, and they're accepting this award. And that's when Bob breaks it to him right out of the side of his mouth. He's like, yeah, you're not going to make partner today, but we'll talk about it. And Misha's like, you gotta be kidding me, man. Like, this dude's knocking in, home runs out of the park, and he can't make partner. You get the feeling he's been there for long enough that he's getting these accolades, right? Now, Bob runs a marketing company called Best Solutions, or BS. How brilliant is that little twist, right? Not a huge twist, but it's pretty brilliant. An agency called BS, pretty good. Well, he's like, I saw you sitting next to Abby, because they go off to this meeting off to the side. He's like, yeah, she's cute. She's good. He goes, I saw you talking to her. He goes, the whole idea that she stopped college to come and do an internship with me is pissing her parents off. And he goes, now I got to take care of her. And of course, I got to protect her because the family's freaked out. She's not going to go back to college. And they're going to be supporting her forever, right? He says, for that reason, Misha, I need you to stay away from her. Like, don't make a relationship with her. Don't give her a reason to stay. She needs to fly back to America as soon as this whole internship thing is over, and, sooner the better, right? So that whole thing is set up. The tension's set up. Bob's the boss. Misha works for Bob. He's trying to make partnership. He's just fallen in love, you can assume, with Abby. So now we switch over. And Max von Sydow is playing Joseph. If you don't know Max von Sydow, he was the priest in Exorcist. He was also a gentleman in the intelligence agency in a movie called Dreamscape. He has been in 1,000 different things. He always plays a very eccentric character. The very fact that he accepted this role, and he was a little bit older, of course, he's actually much older. For me, it gave me credibility in this film. Let's watch this film, because Max would not take a piece of crap. He just wouldn't. And he didn't. Now, what you'll read if you read the Wikipedia plot, and not the film necessarily, is that he's in some Mediterranean area. And he's known as this god of marketing. He works for a completely different agency. And what's interesting about it is I'm going to give you a future-looking way to see Max in this particular character. Joseph sort of works for this agency that doesn't really have an origin. When I first saw the film, I thought he was in some celestial realm, almost like the Greek gods in Clash of the Titans, reaching down into the Colosseum, changing characters and disturbing lives. There's a flavor of that to where he is, which we'll get to later down the line. But he's in this beautiful kind of, Mediterranean mansion. He's always has this balcony that faces almost nothing. And he's got this little conference table. It seats about 8, 4 on each side. And he has all of the executives from fast food agencies in there. None of them have any brands in there. I mean, you don't see McDonald's or anything, right? But if you pay attention to the way the movie has sort of filmed Moscow or this Makba, there are brands all over the place that are copies of brands that exist in our world. McDonald's is known as the burger. It has an arch in this logo. Apple is Yelple. Microsoft is Giant Soft. Versace is VIP Achi. It is a blast to see how they spun a bunch of brands that actually exist in our world. I'll let you see the rest of them. But he talks to these fast food people who are there desperately to get his next stage of what to do with fast food, because all of the fast food profits have dwindled. And he flat says to them, he goes, look, I've analyzed your market. And he goes, the public is tired of what you have to offer. And when the public is tired of what you have to offer, you're done. So I can't do anything for what you currently have on the market. And he goes, if you want to survive, I got what you need. But he says to them very succinctly, he says, I need to know that you're willing to do anything to be on top again. So why don't you just let me know, each one of you, that you're willing to be on top. You're willing to do anything. And one of the guys just right off the bat says, oh, we'll do anything, no problem. And the guy across from him says, well, we'll do anything within the law, of course. And he looks at him and he says, that's not enough. He goes, that doesn't even begin to touch what we need to do. Meaning breaking the law is just the cusp of the beginning of what he has in mind. And eventually, they all agree. And once they agree, he says to them, he goes, we're going to make fat the new beautiful. You don't hear any plans specifically other than the narration adds itself to the film. They could have put this on camera. I like the way they did it, quite frankly, personally. It just feels new, it feels different, and it feels traditional. The film noir. But what you hear through the narration is that because of budget constraints, because these companies have done so poorly, they're going to start with the third worlds first, starting in Kenya, Brazil, and Russia. And that's where they're going to hatch this. So it switches back to our Makba world. And Misha is driving Abby. And everything's cool. I mean, they're not crossing any lines necessarily. And he gets a phone call. And on the phone it says, Hi, Misha. It's some guy. And he's like, yeah, I just want you to know that you're fired. Your entire agency is fired. And you're never going to work with the studio ever again. And Abby can hear this on the phone. And of course, he's just sitting there with the cell phone against his head. And he's shocked. You can see it on his face. And he pauses for like several beats in the script as he's thinking about what the hell he's going to say. And he says something in Russian. And I don't know if the original DVD will have this Russian translated, but you kind of get the sense. He looks over her and he goes, look, I got to take you home because I got to go. And she has already taken her seatbelt off to get out of the car. And she buckles back up. She goes, let's go. Let's do it. And it's this goddamn Belarus project, the one he watched the horrible trailer for. And now they have someone getting dunked in a tank of water, and it's an actress, and she's screaming, and they're trying to get something on film that'll make people want to see this movie. They're filming a brand new composite trailer for this thing. Apparently not using the actual footage from the movie itself. It fast forwards through this sequence where she's there, she's seeing it too. Abby's seeing how it works, right? And she's seeing a genius of Misha. Then they show a test room with about 8 people in the room. They've already shown the new trailer to these people. They're watching through two-way glass. It's Bob, it's Misha, and Abby with another guy. I don't know if actually Abby's there, but this person in the screening room goes, would you watch this movie after seeing this trailer? And the majority of the people raise their hand. Studio's happy. Misha saved the day. And of course, Bob's happy too, because they didn't lose the account. So now we've seen a lot of Misha in the current day, which is apparently 2017. And the movie takes a break to explain where the hell did Misha come from? Because it's a thing. How did he become this guru genius? And what he describes is that as soon as communism fell, they saw the light, that capitalism was going to fulfill these spots that communism had basically left open. And so he wanted to get into this, but he was kind of working normal labor jobs because he was in the USSR. And if you think he's like 12 in the early 80s, then he's in his early 20s in the 1990s. So they're kind of portraying this in the 90s. He takes a job working for a gentleman who has a little grocery store on a street. But he's been studying marketing. And so he tells this guy, look, I've learned 3 rules of marketing. Let's go through it with you. First rule, you sell a bunch of weird stuff in your little grocer. You need to pick your highest selling product, which is vodka. In this particular case, just sell vodka. The guy flashes forward, it's all vodka. And he says, okay, rule number 2, you got to put a sign out front and advertise the fact that you're only vodka. His sales double, triple, and quadruple. And then Misha finds out the 3rd rule the hard way. He asks for a raise because he's already doubled the price of this guy, and he's already bought a used Mercedes. He went from 0 to hero, right? And he gets fired. All right. Now, what I'm telling you right now might seem trivial, but it's going to come back. And it's going to be great. Misha says, okay, look, after that one experience, he's like, I understand marketing enough. I should be opening a marketing, an ad agency. So he does. He opens up an ad agency, but doesn't have any money. So he borrows from a shark to get his place started. Well, very soon he's upside down. And they show a funny little scene of him getting tortured by this guy. And then he's like, oh my gosh, now he's a little bit desperate. This is when Bob gets involved. Bob Gibbons. Well, Bob Gibbons comes to him and says, look, I'll work with you. But he goes, I have one stipulation. He goes, I'm actually from America, And he says to him, he goes, look, I just need something else from you while you do what you do. I need you to sort of like keep your eyes open and maybe write me a few reports about what you see. Just here in Moscow or Makba, whatever they want to call it, right? He says, what? He says, what are you, a spy? And Bob's like, yeah, not really. He goes, here's the thing. He goes, you guys were the USSR. And, now you're free. And now we want to help capitalism start, because this is where individuality starts and where you start to kind of lose all this Prussian education you guys have got. It makes for a better group of people when everybody could do what they love, right? And he's kind of like, well, that doesn't sound horrible. It sounds weird, but it sounds horrible. And just about the time he agrees to this relationship, outside there's car drives up, you hear the skid marks, and you hear gunfire. And the camera pans outside, and that shark that tortured him is murdered in cold blood outside. And Misha's like, oh my gosh, looks like that guy was murdered. And Bob says, well, man, it looks like you need a new partner. So let's look at the chronology for 1 second. He's offered this deal. You kind of write up little intelligence reports for us, and I'll finance your company. I'll finance your ad company. We'll build it together. As soon as he agrees, it's almost like someone was hearing it over a microphone, which is not portrayed in the movie. And the shark, who just tortured him in the previous scene, is dead, bleeding to death outside. Interesting, right? Bob says he works for an agency called the USAID. So now we're back to jam traffic, because it just seems to be a problem in this crazy Soviet Union. Misha's driving, Abby's in the car, and it's a really hot day. And she's always looking at him, and there's a woman in the car next to him, starts to undress in the car. This gorgeous model, right? And he looks over, and she's like, what is she doing? He's like, I don't know. What is she doing? And she's like, it's hot in here. You got a brand new car, and your air conditioner doesn't seem to work. What the hell is wrong with you? And he never really retorts, you know? So then Abby, who's hot, starts taking off her panties, starts taking off her top. She's got a bra underneath, but she basically undresses about 50%. And this is to kind of show, this scene is to exhibition the fact that Abby's actually pretty cool. I mean, she's like willing to take charge to get the job done. But she keeps telling him about this new project. Very soon they reach a destination. They're headed somewhere. And they're going by all this different advertising that's in this particular area of Russia that they're in. And it's got some classic advertising from the era of Lenin. And this is where we get a very important understanding about at least the opinions of the writer-director. And he tells her, because Abby's 100% American, this gentleman is half British, half Russian. He's actually genetically British, but he was raised in Russia, so he knows to speak the English perfectly. And Russian perfectly. And he tells her at that point, he goes, this is where marketing started. He's pointing at some old Lenin advertising, or basically propaganda from Lenin's era. She's like, what the hell are you talking about? She says, Lenin, he invented marketing. He figured out how to talk to the workers and the peasants and everybody else to basically create little containers for them so they felt like they were equally represented. He says, look, they picked the color red and they picked the star. And then, using the power of the government, they made all the competition illegal and they were the only thing in town. He goes, this is where it started. This is how marketing started. And just as a viewer, you know, I don't technically know if that's true, but it's a very interesting thing. Because the whole government of the USSR was put behind the propaganda machine. We'll go look at North Korea. Same exact thing has been repeated over there. Look at China. Same thing has been repeated over there. Every single communist country is playing this card. And he's right. And where they're going is to this meeting, which technically happens just before they actually have that Lenin epiphany. But there's a woman who wants to start a new reality show. It's a reality show called Extreme Cosmetics, and it's got like the cosmetic word's a little longer. I forgot how it works. But her whole thing is to create a beauty show where they actually purposefully cast an obese but pretty woman into the show. She's going to win. And she goes off to get cosmetic surgery, which makes her beautiful. And then she's going to basically be paraded at the final episode. And it's fantastic. And she happens to want this person, this director, to be involved that Abby knows. And that person happens to be in the restaurant. She goes, oh, you want, I think it's Sergio or something like that. And she goes, oh, you want to, one second. She gets up. You know, Misha is the guy who's doing the meeting, right? She's hooked this thing up. She runs over and grabs the guy out of his booth, brings it over to her, and she goes, this is my friend, so-and-so, the one you just mentioned, as you want for the director. And the whole thing just sets up. It's just amazing. They get this deal to create this reality show. Now, on the way home, they're in traffic again, and they're just in love. It's happening. They were stuck in traffic. She ends up hopping on top of him. You don't know, I don't think they're making love, but man, they're getting close. What did Bob say? Bob said, Misha, stay away from Abby. Well, Bob is in a car about two cars back on their left. He's listening to classical music. The score is playing a bunch of wild ass music, and they're just all over each other. And finally, Bob catches up. He looks over and he's like, oh my God. He rolls down his window. He's like, Abby? Of course, their windows are down because their air conditioner doesn't work. And she freaks out, jumps over. Bob gets out of the car. He's like, Misha, get out of the car right now. I'm going to kick your ass. I told you to stay away from her, and look what you're doing. And Misha jumps out and tries to calm him down. He's just kind of like, F you, blah, blah, blah. Bob knocks Misha out. But then we flash forward. And again, all of this is important to the conclusion. This is still kind of your setup. Abby is casting the role of this lead character, this heavy-set woman that's going to be put in this extreme cosmetic show. And Misha's there too. and looking through, face shots, and they finally find this beautiful woman who's overweight. And Misha's like, she's the one. Boom, she's cast. Her name is Veronica. So everything's going great. Misha and Abby go home, and they actually make love in her apartment. It's very beautiful. Now, while they're making love, they're fast-forwarding time in sort of a montagey way. And the show is going. It's going through all of its stages. And Veronica is now, she's one, and she's scheduled for surgery, and it's all good. She's been put up in a nice place at this hospital. And then they wake up the next morning, and she is freaking out. She's called on a video conferencing software, and she's saying, I don't want to do the surgery. I don't feel comfortable with it. So Misha says, don't worry about it. Don't worry. I'll figure it out. I'll get her convinced. He goes down and convinces her to do the surgery. She does the surgery. She goes straight into a coma the next day and doesn't wake up. It's all Misha and Abby's fault. But it also did what? It made attempting to be anything other than fat turn into a bad thing. Just be fat, right? So Misha's like, mother effer, right? Somebody set this whole thing up. He's pissed. He goes to Bob's office. He's like, you set this whole thing up, didn't you? Because they both get arrested and released on different release conditions. She has to leave the country. Misha, they don't really explain how he got out. He goes to Bob, and Bob's like, you think I set this thing up? Because you know how many millions of dollars it would take to do what you're saying, this conspiracy that you're talking about. He goes, if I had set this up, I guarantee you one thing, you'd still be in jail. Because I was trying to send Abby back under any circumstance. And he goes, you would still be in jail for backstabbing me, so it wasn't me. And what you realize, especially after you watch the movie twice, is that Misha's right. What he doesn't understand is he's accusing Bob. Max van Sydow is the one that set him up. Remember, this woman just showed up out of thin air wanting to make this show occur. So that was the plant. And they fell for it because they're trying to create something on the side. Because Misha can't make partner. And there's a little subplot that Misha's thing, which it boils off really quickly. He says, look, I don't mind not making partner right now. I do want to be partner eventually. But Bob, you need to cut me in so I make as much money as you guys. Because I'm doing all the heavy lifting here. And Bob just keeps postponing the conversation, right? So Bob convinces Misha, look, I didn't do it, right? I didn't do it. I'm pissed off at you for what you did. So they go off to a little restaurant. I mean, it's just like a little divey thing where you have to stand up at one of those booths where you usually get a hot dog or something. And they're just finishing some food. And Misha's pissed. He's just pissed because Abby's gone. And he's just pissed. And so what he does is he tells Bob, he goes, look, man, he goes, do you know what? He goes, you know what you came to me and you said about me reporting to you all these crazy events that I saw? He goes, you know what? I made most of it up. Oh, the people are real, but what I said they did is all bullshit. He goes, the vodka stand guy, you don't know this until this moment. I told you that, he made all this money, he did all this stuff. Well, he's making money, but you leaked an article in the United States that turned into pissing off a bunch of actual Russian mobsters who thought this guy was selling vodka to some massive extent, thus encroaching on their profit, and they went and burned him to death in his booth, in his little grocery store. They show it, right? He said he made up everything about his partner who got murdered, the shark. I fed you what you wanted to hear. Now, it doesn't really make sense for the shark because the shark got killed the second he agreed to the deal. But he basically convinces Bob that he has played him the entire time they've been together. And Bob starts having it. But Misha's walking out. Like, he dropped the mic and he's about to walk out of the restaurant. He's made 20 feet away from Bob. And Bob, for all of his weirdness, is so pissed off that he got had by Misha. He starts having a massive heart attack. Falls on the ground and starts dying. And Misha runs back to him. And he's looking at Bob, and Bob's face is this actor. I mean, he's just Jeffrey. He's amazing. He just does the scream on his face, and he's gone. And Misha's like, holy shit, I just basically killed the guy by fucking with his brain. So Misha leaves Makba. He goes out into God knows where. And then we see Abby in a sort of SUV, and she's got an old-fashioned map, and she's just driving out where I think she thinks he's going to be. And she can't find him. And then she sees a herd of cows. And she ends up seeing a guy on a horse that kind of looks like Misha. But he's got a beard, and it looks different. He's wrapped up because it's a little colder. At least that's what I remember. She drives after him, gets out of her car. She's like, Misha. And all we can see is his back. And he turns around, and it doesn't even look like him, but it's him. She goes to where he's living. He's living without, it looks like he's living without power. He's got an outhouse. He is living in the sticks of Russia. She's all, what the hell are you doing here? He's like, I'm never going back. He goes, everything I did was evil. And if there wasn't evil in the business, I made evil. I'm not going back. He doesn't tell her, look, I told your uncle, a bunch of stuff that gave him a heart attack. He doesn't quite admit that. But he entertains her for a little while, and she finally just realizes, I'm out. You're going to have to figure this shit out for yourself, I guess. She's heartbroken. She leaves. And that night he goes to bed. And this is the massive turning point of the film. This is the beginning of his hero journey, getting the boon. He has a dream, and in that dream, the narration begins, this woman's voice. He has a vision, and the vision is everything he needs to do to find the truth of what's been haunting him his entire life. He looks up at the stars again, and he sees the bull in the stars. And he goes out, and we're kind of like, we don't know what's going to actually take place. We're told he saw everything he needed to see in order to get to his next level, to see the truth of what's going on in his life. We see him sketch like a pyre, the thing they burn Vikings in, right? He's sketching that part. He goes out to his cattle and he's looking. And it's just a bunch of sort of, the black and white cattle that Gateway Computer used, right? But there's a bull out there that's white. And he's just sitting there looking. It's broad daylight. And they've been making comments that at the time he was in town, that it was light all the time. So it was midnight. It was still light because they're in that northern part of Russia. But he's in an area that actually gets dark now. I don't know if it changed seasons. I'm sure it did. He keeps staring at this damn bull. And as soon as the sun set to kind of a quasi twilight, this bull glows red. The white bull is now red in his mind, and he knows that's the one. And he leads it up a path, a ramp up to this pyre. He traps it inside this hexagonal enclosure, or octagonal enclosure, and he slaughters the bull. This is ancient lore, man. This is real stuff from 2500 BC and beyond, right? The gods of that era all around Europe would give bulls to their people. And as long as you keep the offspring going, you will be prosperous. But if anyone steals your bull, if the bull dies, or if you kill it, all your prosperity's gone. And he slaughters that bull. And he pours the blood on himself. And then he lights the pyre. And it burns up. And he watches. And you get the sense that he is as amazed about this process as we would be. Really? This is what I got to do? Well, he's already filled these pottery jugs with water at the beginning of this ritual, and you don't know what those are for. But now it's all ash. And he walks up with these vases of water and puts a lot of the ash into the water, which obviously cools it down. And he lifts this big one up and he pours all over himself. So now he's been poured with the blood of the bull and with the ashes of the bull. And he's totally naked, right? And he walks out as the sun is rising that morning very slowly. We see him from behind, totally naked, and he collapses on the ground. And the very next scene, he's in Moscow. He's in the back seat of Abby's car. He's wrapped up in a blanket. She got him. She rescued him. She turns around. Misha, you're awake. And he gets up in the back of his car. He's just kind of on his side where he looks over at her. And now we have the next half of this film. There's a CG alien thing. It's very bright colored. And it's attached to her neck. And it is coming around the corner of her chair. And it's just looking at him. It's not violent. It looks like a little Muppet weird thing. The art direction, at first you think it's cheesy. And then the more you watch this, you're thinking, oh my God, it's actually pretty brilliant. But it's looking at him. And he's like, whoa, 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 whoa. You know, and she's like, what's wrong? And this thing is so big and it's between him and her that he can't see her face anymore. And so he grabs a magazine from the back of the car and he winds it up, you know, and he pushes it through this alien and it goes through its face just fine. Like it's not really there. It's not matter, but he can see it. So he's in the back of this car. They need to cut to something else before he actually gets to his destination, which is going to be Abby's crib. And they run this rap song that has been made about being fat and how fat is beautiful and fat is fat and it's great and everybody should be fat. And they show you all these videos of how Moscow citizens in that time frame have all become fat. And he's been gone a while. He's probably been gone 7 to 8 years because you're going to find out in the next scene, Abby drops a bomb on him. She opens the door to her apartment. I mean, this guy just did this ritual with the bull. He's still not showered from this amazing experience. He's not quite covered in ash and everything, but he just did that. He just did that the night before is what you get in your mind, right? Chronologically speaking. Because remember, she found him and then she left and then she came and got him. She opens the door to her apartment and this little fat kid comes around the corner. She says, oh yeah, by the way, you're a father. This is your son. His name is Robert. And he looks like a tiny little Augustus Gloom from Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory. Either the first one or the second one. Looks just like that little kid. But now he's already seen this thing attached to Abby. And now his son comes around the corner. He has 2 or 3 of these things attached to him. And he's looking at his kid thinking, holy shit, why is my kid so fat? Mommy looks hot. I'm not fat. What's going on in my kid's life that as a child, he's already surpassed his normal weight by at least 50%. He's heartbroken. So that night, he's trying to make a choice. Do I tell her the truth or do I lie to her, right? And for almost everyone who watches this show regularly, you would always tell your loved one the truth. So he does. It's in a lovemaking session. She's on top, and these things are like, whoa, around her side. The next morning, he reiterates, look, I'm seeing these things. I'm sorry. I'm not lying to you. And she actually slaps him. Now, that night, she also tells him, look, I tried to date other people, but the time we spent together, I had the most incredible time of my life. So I just couldn't do it. Plus, I had our child, right? They have a day out on the town. And the son is just one of these little fat kids, right? And, you know, mommy's like, you can have anything you want. I have no ability to discipline you, child. Culture has changed. The brands are in charge, right? The kid wants the burger, which would be some sort of McDonald's burger in our world. And he's begging her. Now, the kid's already, you know, he needs to be on a diet. But she's like, okay, here's some money. And this thing on the back of the kid's neck matches the coloring of the brand. And the thing starts to inflate and get bigger as the kid's begging for the money to go to this little stand that's in the center of this building. And it's just pushing and pulling. It's just trying to reach over and get to the burger, the product that the brand loves. So it's pulling this kid, and he's inflating it because his desire for the product is all the brands care about. What's hoarding all about, right? You ever watch the show Hoarders? All these bags of brand new purchased items from Target and Walmart stacked 9 feet tall. The second they bought it, they didn't care about it anymore. It was just the desire for the purchase. It's all they wanted. And this is portrayed in a visual metaphor of a monster on the back of a kid's neck. The kid goes over to get the burger, and of course his father's like, oh my God, what the hell has happened to my child? Abby's not a moron, but what the hell's wrong? The kid gets a hamburger, and as soon as he takes a bite of the hamburger, this thing disconnects because it's completely inflated with all this desire. And that's when Daddy watches this smaller bag of air and with this crazy decal on it. He's watching it, and it goes up. And on the top of all of the buildings in Moscow, since he's been there, they're covered in these big, giant mother brands. Big, in some cases, it's a giant mothership of this brand. In other cases, it's a bunch of like bigger globs of the brand. And it attaches and it brings the desire to the brand, which is a living thing, that all it wants is for you to desire the brand. Almost the genealogy and metaphysics behind the gods existing in this, any sort of fabled metaphor of humanity, right? If you don't believe in the gods, they cease to exist. Go watch American Gods, the show on Cinemax. Well, it sort of fast forwards a little bit, and Misha's in the Kubler-Ross effect, right? Anger, denial, negotiation, and acceptance. He's not sure. What the hell is he going to do? It shows him in bed with Robert, and he's reading him a story at night. It's a beautiful little moment. It's like Princess Bride. And his little son goes, read it again to me, Daddy. So he's kind of like, you know what? Whatever. These brands. And he looks down at his son, and there's little tiny stubs that are brewing on the kid's neck, getting ready to get big the next time the kid has a desire. And he actually puts his hands through him. He's like, oh my God, you know what? My child's been attacked by these brands, and my sort of baby mama doesn't understand because she can't see it. She doesn't understand. She wasn't struck by lightning when she was young. She didn't pour blood and ash on herself. So he goes on to Oogle, which is the replacement for Google, and he searches on this ritual that he did, the red cow thing. And he finds online that, oh my God, this is called the red cow ritual. And it's to cleanse two things. To cleanse your hands from touching the dead, which is Bob. And it cleanses something I actually skipped over in the beginning of this film. At this BS company is a bunch of golden bulls, which is like the golden calf of Baal, right? They're all in the lobby. If you ever go to any one of the lobbies of the Walt Disney Corporation, they have all of the fringed flags everywhere. It's like, why is that there? Why would there be any flags of any kind? We're not in the Supreme Court. You know, we're not on Washington, D.C., the sovereign land. Why is that there? It's strange. But it's to cleanse him of the sins of the gold bull, which we would say is the golden calf. He then looks up Abby on Oogle and finds out that she's worth $7 million all of a sudden. And he says, are you worth $7 million? Do you really have $7 million? He says, yeah. He goes, Bob. She said, Bob left $7 million to me. He goes, so now we have money. And you have me. That's all you need. And so he is pretending. Later, just a few minutes later, they're eating lunch. And it's just packed of fast food everywhere. The burger, which is the McDonald's burgers right in front of him. It's this big, giant, like almost Whopper kind of burger. And he's like, hey, yeah, it's great. Hey, everybody. And he's seeing the brands everywhere. And he's like just disgusted. So they take off to leave wherever they're going. And he spits up the burger. He's like, oh, God, I can't be eating this crap. And then he fucking throws all this fast food shit off the table. He's pissed, and he starts looking at the kitchen, and he starts knocking everything off the shelf and pulling everything out of the refrigerator, and he's just making a big, giant mess, throwing a tantrum. Abby forgot something, and all of a sudden he looks up. He's made a total mess of this kitchen. Looks like a maniac. And little Robert's there. And he already was skeptical of like Dad being a weirdie. And she's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm sorry, I'll fix everything. And that's when he sits her down and he says, look, man, I figured it out. And he goes, it's all a conspiracy, man. It's all a conspiracy. He knows of Joseph. And he figures out that Joseph's probably the one who pulled this off. But he tells her something extremely important in the kitchen. Something you need to remember. Something you need to repeat to yourself and others. He says, back in the day, the brands followed the people. The people had desires and the brands followed up. He goes, now it's the opposite. The brands tell the people what to do and the people follow. Ain't that the truth, huh? Just do it, right? And he says to her, he goes, look what they done to our son. Boy, there comes a little twist there. She goes, what did they do to our son? She pauses and throws that back in his face because she's like, I'm a shitty parent. I don't know how to parent. I've let our kid go to obese, but now I'm going to throw this wokeism bullshit in your face. This is 2012. How dare you say anything about our son, who's obviously unhealthy and obese? And she says, look, everybody's just trying to be happy. I just want to be happy. Brands make her happy, right? So she's defending herself and all of society with his addiction to brands through the metaphor of being happy, which is the false promise of all marketing, isn't it? And this is when he looks at the TV. It kind of interrupts their program. And they start broadcasting that there's a viral pandemic. And if you listen closely, it sounds like Mad Cow a little bit. It's a meat problem. And he looks at this thing. He's like, whoa, I think I got an idea, right? So they get in the car together, trying to travel around. And there's a moment when they get out of the car. And she's just trying to address him, like, what's going on? And the monster thing gets right up in his face from her neck. And impulsively, he pushes her down. She hits literally the sidewalk in front of everybody. And she gets up and walks off. And he realizes he's screwed up. And they show him coming back to the apartment later that day. They don't really describe what he's done. And there's a John Doe letter there that basically says, I'm going on vacation. I don't want you here when I get back. It makes sense. It kind of looks like he's going nuts, right? So now he's in that apartment by himself. It's all cleaned up now. And he finds the old business card from BS advertising. He goes out on his balcony and he just sees all these brands and he just screams at the top of his lungs. So he goes back inside and he's a sharp looking dude, but he's looked like crap ever since he went out. And Abby shaved his beard down, but he's still a kind of pedestrian as opposed to his like $10,000 Armani suit, right? He has an idea now. It's time to kick some ass. So here we're going into the last act of this film. So if you want to get out and see the rest of it, I know it's a little strange, but it's fun to watch. He dresses to the nines, baby, and he goes back. And he meets with a chain of restaurants that wants to open a vegetarian alternative to fast food. So, but what he does is brilliant. He ends up in this room with a bunch of guys from Korea, if I remember right. And they all have a weird, transparent set of tubes coming off their head. It's going into the ceiling. He can see it. And he tells them, he goes, look, nobody in Russia wants your product. Guys, you sell vegetarian meals, and it's not popular. And so he says, look, if you want to succeed with vegetarian places, restaurants, then you have to be willing to do something regardless of the consequences. And the guy says, well, of course, but within the law. And he says, oh no, we got to go way past that. So now Misha is fighting Joseph with his own words, but on the opposite side of the spectrum of fast food. And he pulls out a piece of paper and he says, this is what you got to create. It's a beef tester. We have a viral pandemic going around. Isn't that interesting? 2012 viral pandemic in the movie. We have a viral pandemic going around that's a meat virus, which if you know anything about mad cow was a protein virus that you simply can't kill, period. You could burn mad cow down to ash, re-eat the ash, and you'll get mad cow again, which Swiss cheeses your brain. It's terrifying, okay? It's a real deal. But he says, make the beef tester. And the next thing we see is the most incredible commercial without revealing the burger brand. It's a whole restaurant of fat people, but they're all made up real nice. And there's kind of a really nice, chunky girl. She's pretty. And it's really kind of handsome, really chunky guy. And he's bringing them food out to her. And boy, it's got this romance music going. And she's looking at him and he's looking at her. And they look like a pretty good couple in real life. And he brings it to her. She takes this gigantic burger, right? And she takes a bite out of it. And then they show the meat tester going into the meat. And it goes red hot. And she's already eaten it. And she realizes, I'm going to die of this virus because I didn't test my meat first. And this goes out as a massive ad campaign paid for by the Korean vegetarian option, which hasn't opened a single restaurant yet. Now, while this is occurring, remember I told you there's all these aliens now that Misha can see. They're brands attached to buildings. And like if there's a Yelp store, which is an Apple store in our world, it's got the Yelp thing on top. If it's, there's one for Nike. I can't remember how these did it. It's just brilliant, right? All these like giant soft, they all have these giant aliens attached to their respective buildings. Well, over the top of this building that this Korean company is, I guess, rented, or maybe it's his ad building, a big giant egg has formed. It's all mesh and wild looking. And it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. More times this ad airs about testing your beef, which is against all the fast food places, which are all beef-based. This egg gets bigger. And finally he goes up and he's watching this egg. And this is the brilliance of the whole thing. We're almost done. He finally tells the company, look, it's time to open your restaurants. Open them everywhere you can possibly afford to open your restaurant. Not only third world, but first world. Go for it. And we don't actually we do see these restaurants open and they're super cute and they have like brands and wild like mascots and stuff out there. Finally, the egg breaks open while he's watching this thing happen during the day because it's daytime most of the time, right? This dragon thing comes out. It's a dragon thing with a scorpion tail. It's just it looks like CG, right? It's not trying to be super realistic. It's not horrible, but now it's got wings and it starts flying around and it finds the burger boss for one, and it just starts stabbing the shit out of this burger and it starts just destroying the burger brand. It kills the mothership of the burger brand, literally. Which is where metaphor becomes reality for him because he can see it, right? Now, the end of this film doesn't need a blow-by-blow. The end of this film is actually fairly easy to understand. That dragon thing slices and dices and fights and creates children and kills every one of the brands in Moscow. Well, this is pissing off a lot of people that like those brands that are dying, right? Because the restaurants are going under. The stock starts plummeting horribly. Max van Sydow, playing Joseph, they flash to him. And of course, he's in some unknown location. And he walks into the same exact clients he started the movie with. And he's like, I'm sorry, it's over. Nobody wants, again, what we're selling. There's no salvation to this. But he gets like a mental call to go out to the balcony. And he goes out to the balcony, which we've seen him come in from several times, and he looks up to something we don't know. And a lightning bolt hits Max, and he just vanishes. His clothes hit the ground, no blood, he is gone. And of course, all the fast food people look at him like, oh shit, like the guy who's been telling us everything to do is now dead, now missing. From some celestial realm, he was killed. And they leave it up to you to figure out in your brain where that came from. Now, the next thing is about the level of like almost a comic book turn to the script. The mob starts getting very pissed in Moscow. They get together and they want to go after this BS company that made this campaign that killed all their brands. And so they start storming through the streets of Moscow going towards his company. Abby's trying to take, Robert out on a vacation away from Daddy. Daddy's trying to get her on the telephone, but she won't answer the phone. So eventually he just starts to leave this giant voicemail telling her, how much he loves her and what this whole thing was about. The mob breaks into his marketing company and just storms up the levels. They are just tantamount to killing people. They're hitting people with baseball bats. I don't think there's necessarily guns, but it's bad news. They're breaking down all the glass walls. They finally get to his level. He tries to fight back and gets clobbered in the head with a baseball bat. He looks straight up dead on the ground. Abby apparently figured out that all this destruction, because as this dragon thing's killing all the brands, buildings are kind of blowing up a little bit, and she's like, he must be telling the truth. They don't actually put it on point. But I think she's figuring out, look, Misha was right. He wasn't lying to me. I need to get to Misha. So I don't know where Robert goes, but she runs up and gets to him and finds him knocked out really bad. I mean, he looks like he's dead. And this crowd's about to just seal the deal and kill everybody. And this dude fires a gun 2 or 3 times in the air because there's a Russian announcement on the TV. Now, if I don't have the translated version of that, nor the subtitles of any of it, but what you get was there was an announcement that's going to fix what's going on here in Moscow. And the next thing you see is utterly brilliant. They start sawing off of all the cars, all of the Mercedes emblems, everything branded anywhere in Moscow is chopped off of everything. So if you had Gucci on the side of your glasses, that's pulled off. If there's ever a sign anywhere, it's taken down. And you see the entire city melting all these brands down. It's like you can keep your car, but you can't keep the brand on it. There's a change. And they push the camera up into the hospital where you see Misha and Robert playing, making faces and having fun. So he's okay. The kid's totally into his dad now. Abby's watching and she's so happy. And they run it off to the side that woman Veronica from that Extreme Cosmetics show that ended up in the coma, she wakes up in her bed. And of course she's thin and gorgeous now. Played by, I think, a different actress, of course. And she's in her gown, a white gown, and she just leaves the hospital. And she just starts walking out of Moscow, and she's all nice and thin now, and they just show her from behind. And she just wanders off into the city. And then they roll credits. This movie is deep. Believe it or not, it's deep. The coup de grace of the film at the very end is something that I think might still be yet to occur, which is they keep trying to do artificial meat. They want you to eat grasshoppers and all this other crazy 2030 stuff, right? What would kick that off? A viral pandemic related to natural beef. They got mad cow, right? All they have to do today is accuse a certain animal or vegetable of having a virus. And then they have these morons that go out and kill every chicken, kill every pig, kill every cow. They've done it over and over the last 5 years, haven't they? Now imagine they concentrate that down to one agenda. Exactly like this movie said. But what if you could see that movie for free on Netflix? What if you could rent it on Amazon Prime for $2.99 or whatever, $3.99, and you saw their plan, and then all of a sudden it happened in real life? How much would you be willing to believe the narrative if you just saw it in a fictional movie? Obviously, near zero. So the movie's not available to stream right now. They know the few folks that are going to buy the DVD are just dying off with the baby boomers, right? I'm at the very edge of Gen X. And I don't have a DVD. I mean, I own a DVD player probably in storage, but I don't have it functioning. I don't even have a TV in my place where I live, other than the monitor of my computer, right? But I don't just sit around and watch this stuff. The only two places I ever see television is about 10 feet over in one of those directions, about 15 feet over there, and a different lounge, which actually has lots of TVs. But I'm only streaming the shows I dig, right? Which is usually old movies. I think most of you know I'm pretty meticulous with what I watch, right? This one took me 2 times recently to get just to the level of what I'm telling you. There's a ton of symbolism in the film. It's not gross or anything like that, and you definitely get the sense this is not made by them. You get the sense, it could be, but I get the sense it's made by us. Just 2 guys who thought it probably became friends because they seem like they're from 2 different worlds. The credits for this film were mostly Russian. They just saw the machine and they wrote a script and they got it made. And of course, it's very anti-capitalist. When I said that Ebert, of all people, was against this, I don't know if you know Siskel and Ebert. Ebert's the chunky one, right? Who died of salivary cancer, potentially by the exposure to cell phones, right? Some people are very sensitive to that. You're older, you have a bad immune system because you're obese and you have a bad system. You put those big old candy bar cell phones up next to your face in the 90s and you just boil your face away like Adam Young from Beastie Boys, right? It's a horrific thing that happened to a couple people. But of course, it's his life. It's his thing. Now, of course, from a movie standpoint, you could pick it to pieces. Making a film is very difficult. Getting a film finished is even more difficult. Getting it distributed is very difficult. This film released in only 310 theaters when it came out. It only made about $3.5 million in the box office. So why the hell wouldn't it be streaming? Right? Why wouldn't it be purchasable? You can't even purchase this thing. It's been digitized. I saw it first on Netflix for free. Someone is holding this thing back. Why would anybody who made $3.5 million from this film ever take a moment out of their checkbook, out of their balance sheet, out of their P&L to not allow this film to be distributed? There's no reason other than it has some truth in it you're not supposed to see. The trailer they cut for the film is jaw-dropping. Some people accuse the trailer of being misleading. And all I can say is they must have created a speculation in their mind that was way beyond or much different than the film. And almost every movie can do that to you, right? I've seen the trailer probably a dozen times since I watched the film just to make sure. I hadn't heard that criticism until just tonight from Wikipedia's, sort of critic response area. It gets at the heart of what's going on. But the movie is 106 minutes, so it's shy of 2 hours. It's not like terribly long. For me, the movie's just raw. It sort of feels like a director's cut. But had they cut anything else, it would be shorter than 106 minutes, right? 120 is 2 hours, right? So I don't think they want to go too much shorter than what they've already got. They could probably knock it down to 90. But you won't see any scenes in this film that is just pure exhibition. Now, on a movie level, just to look at the script just a little bit, getting away from the overall push of the actual message, there's, when you write a film, you've got to have mechanisms and plot mechanisms to force characters together so they can have their moment. Because Misha and Abby weren't living in the same apartment complex, they hadn't met as good as it gets or something, the writers used the common theme of jam traffic to push Misha and Abby together in 3 different scenes so that their relationship could develop to the point where it kicked off and they ended up making love back at her place. Even under the protest of Uncle Bob. Probably the only character in the entire film that doesn't have a tremendous amount of dimension would be Robert, the little kid. And that's fine. He would be interrupting the flow of the film. The film is about Misha and Abby and Bob up until the point he actually passes, with Max von Sydow out there in the Mediterranean somewhere doing what he does. I guarantee you Max filmed this film in a single day with his contribution, right? Which at that age, you start getting actors struggling to remember lines and put it together. I don't know what his condition was. But what's fun for me too is, I don't know how old any one of you are, but if you ever see a new film that I would say at least meets the critique of being decent, right? It's a decent film, right? Up to being a blockbuster like Star Wars. Star Wars comes out, and if you had seen a bunch of movies in the time frame, you would have seen Harrison Ford in American Graffiti, and that's about it. You would have seen Mark Hamill in Corvette Summer. And then, once you get up into the sort of Tarkin level, you'll have some British actors you recognize. I'm not even sure James Earl Jones, God bless his soul, 93, he wins. We'll miss him. I don't know if people put it together. That was his voice. I don't know. My father didn't go home and go, that's James Earl Jones, man. He's super famous already. He was in Dr. Strangelove with Kubrick. He was in a boxing film. This dude's like master thespian. But when you got to see Star Wars with a bunch of new faces, and it was a fantastic, 10 out of 10 movie for 1977, it does something to you, right? That you got a brand new group of folks, and you're not thinking about Indiana Jones. You're not thinking about anything else but that movie. Casting Ed and Lily was a brilliant stroke, I think. Max is a bit of a character anchor, and Jeffrey, who plays Bob, he's never... he's done so much stuff. He just doesn't get in the way of the film. You don't have to think about him in any other character, and he plays the character so well. And he always has a character with great dimension. The film has a velocity which is great. It keeps you from really wandering in your brain. Nothing really slows down. Even the lovemaking scenes, in and out quick. Pardon the pun, right? And Misha has a vulnerability to him, whereas Abby's more of a freight train. Abby's a rich kid who's allowed to go to Russia because she wants to. She wants to get out of college. But she's also very fair-minded, so you can figure that she's not out to screw anybody. She wants to try things new and see if she's got the chops to pull it off, right? Whatever she gets involved in. Bob is trying to protect her, get her home, keep the parents happy. He is fearful for her future. I don't have another movie in my brain to review, okay? So this might be the last for a while. I want to take a moment here, because we just got a little bit. I don't want to divert too far away from this particular film. But let me talk about some of the other films. If you haven't seen those episodes or seen the films, you have some homework. You really have some important homework to do. Probably some of the most important homework you can put on your list, if you haven't seen it, is going to see Soylent Green. There's articles coming out, which we posted on our Telegram, which is Telegram. The channel's called Deep Thoughts Channel. They're talking about, somehow humans are being recycled into our food supply. That's straight up Soylent Green stuff, right? THX 1138. Well, that's a way in the future realm of a truly fascist society. You have shaved heads, white gowns that you wear everywhere you go, and you are living in basically an advanced level of the USSR. You are told what to do. You don't have really the ability to exercise the normal emotional spectrum as a human being. You're not allowed to be human in this world. It's very important you see that movie. Rollerball 1976. It's, again, near future, probably 50 years out or so. And you're talking about a society that's been divided into three categories. The people, the rollerballers, and the executives, each being a pyramid. Right? The people down below is probably 90% of the pyramid. 9% of the pyramid are the rollerballers, and 1% of that pyramid on the tippy top. That's the executives. And it's about a gentleman named Jonathan E., played by James Caan, who's the best rollerballer in the world. Very humble man. But he's being forced into retirement because by being the best in the world, he is starting to get the masses down below in the pyramid to think about being individuals instead of continuing to live in a corporate conversion of the world. There are no more countries in rollerball, 1976. Everything is turned into corporations. Well, today you live in this cesspool of corporations seemingly saving society. Every opinion you get is out of social media or some super fake news, right? That's the world they've set up for you, except it's more meat and potatoes Dow industrial corporations because it was 1976 without the internet. We have Logan's Run. What's the premise of Logan's Run? At 30, you're dead. No options. You have a crystal that's put in your palm, and every 5 years, the crystal changes colors. Roughly, somewhere in there. But when it goes red, you're in the next ascension. You're going to be renewed. No questions asked. And the story's about one of the runners who chases people who try to defect away from their renewal process because they realize, I'm only 30. What the hell is wrong with 30? And he is turned red 2 years before he's supposed to be red, so he can chase a place called Sanctuary, where all of these people supposedly are escaping to. The other sci-fi one that's important is Looker, 1980. Looker is written and directed by Michael Crichton. Michael Crichton wrote Andromeda Strain. Michael Crichton was one of the most gifted human beings on planet Earth because he was writing this stuff when he was extremely young. Looker's about a technology that runs through your devices, which today would be your cell phone, your tablet, your computer, and your television, that you're literally paralyzed by the screen. A frequency comes out and it stuns you and paralyzes you and makes you watch the ad. It makes you believe something that a politician is saying, like hypnosis. And a plastic surgeon doctor who has nothing to do with the technology is sucked into this project because some of the women he's been working on are involved with Project Looker. And he finds the solution. And of course, the last one I just covered before this one, Meet John Doe. A 1941 movie released before the debacle of Pearl Harbor, which is about a young lady played by Barbara Stanwyck who wrote a letter into her own newspaper claiming that someone wrote a letter to her that they're going to jump off City Hall on Christmas Eve because the world sucks. Eventually, when called on the validity of the letter, she says, I made it up to sell newspapers. Isn't that what you wanted to do, sir? I mean, you fired me, so whatever. And he says, what the hell am I going to do? You invented this whole story, and now the mayor and the governor and all these rich people want to find this guy to keep him from jumping off the building. And they hire a hobo to fill the spot. And it's Gary Cooper, whose name was John Willoughby, which is funny. I'm a Willoughby. His name is John Willoughby, and he assumes the role, doesn't necessarily know what he's getting into, and then a bunch of stuff happens. It's a 2-hour, 2-minute movie. These are extremely important films to understand. I made an episode that I believe is called Creating Profits or something like that. It might be called Making Profits. Just go on to deepthoughtsradio.com, search on the word profits. But what I put in that episode was that a lot of people think that biblical prophecies are coming true. They read Revelations and they believe it's coming true. Now, I will say there are things in Revelations that even being predicted in 1613 by Francis Bacon, who was the first person to translate whatever was going around into the King James Bible. Revelation's got some stuff that's wild. It was even inconceivable, I think, for most of us between those years, right? But if someone writes down a goal into a story, even a fear-mongering statement to scare you away from something, right? You know, hell is there, therefore don't commit sin. They are capable of taking any of the passages from the past and making it truths in the future. It doesn't mean it's some wild divine thing from the past. It's just they took a story and made it true, and therefore can spread rumors that this was actually some divine plan. These movies were agencies paying the best writers in the world, the best movie producers, the best actors in the world to dramatize further on a particular concept that they were considering to see if it could make some sense. What would be the repercussions of this, this, and this, and this in each one of these films? And it also got society, if they enjoy the film, which all the films I just announced to you, they're all very enjoyable. I mean, incredibly enjoyable. Some of the best writing in the world is in some of those films. Some of the best acting is in those films. It predicts things. Even Dr. Strangelove told you right to your face that fluoridation of water was one of the worst concepts on planet Earth. But they put it in a madman in the movie when it was 100% true. So, watching these films, you get an idea of what the story arcs are going to be in your future. For instance, in Rollerball 1975 with James Caan, he goes off to try and find how executive decisions are made because he's being fired and he's like, who's making that decision? I just want to know. I'm just asking for a friend, he says, right? He goes to Geneva where there's a supercomputer and he meets this legendary old British actor. And of course, the character in the movie, he's kind of tickled pink. He gets to meet Jonathan Yee, the best rollerballer in the entire world. So he's kind of like in a VIP capacity as he goes to this computer center, which is 1975. And it's trying to be in the future, right? Bunch of drum drives, pretty funny tape drives. And he says, as they're making their way down to the supercomputer, he drops a little thing and he says, we lost the 12th century last week. It's like, what? Yeah, it's around here somewhere, but we lost the 12th century. Why was that and how is that? Because all of the historical sites have probably been liquidated by that time, and the only recorded record of the 12th century has been digitized. Jonathan already found out there's no more books, there's no libraries, everything's been paraphrased down. And so we get to see a glimpse into our future. Eventually, if they tear Rome down, or you can't get there because of a 15-minute city won't let you travel there, and Rome is dispersed, right? You can't see any Roman ruins, which is something that Logan's Run gets to. And it's all digitized. Even at the elite level, you lose a drum drive, or you lose a hard drive, or you lose whatever disk array you got set up, and it's gone. That's how fragile we are allowing the world to be. How many of you have printed photographs of your family in an album so that if your computer dies and the cloud disappears because of a hack, you don't lose every single photo you've taken since you were an adult, because maybe you're 30 years old and everything's digital and nothing is printed? My father has been very brilliant about this without even thinking about a conspiracy. He was a photographer professionally, so he loves photography. He took a bunch of our photographs from our family, new and old, and put them into those books that you have printed. And then he printed dozens of them, and he sent them out to family members. So they're all in everyone's home. So if one house burns down, there's still a copy of it left. You have to burn the whole world down to get rid of my father's photographs. Not to say they can't do it, but he at least went against the odds of losing our entire family history. Brilliant. I forget I need to do that, right? I think personally, one of the games they're playing is focus on the distractions of today, focus on the hatred of the divides that they've created today, and there's plenty of legit ones they've created, but they're just like fads, right? Horrific things are happening in the world, and we're forgetting. We're forgetting about Lahaina, Maui. We're forgetting about it. It burned all the way down. These people can't even go to their land because it's all fenced off, and non-American people are protecting that land from any of the indigenous people who own the property from walking up to their property. The only way they get in is they sneak in at night. But there's penalties if they get to their land, they get caught. We can't be those kind of people where we just simply don't care. We can't save the entire world, any one of us, but we can definitely reinforce our own kind. That's what we want to do. I can't restore. If Germany burned down, I wouldn't know how to restore it back to what Germany should be. If England burns down, I don't know how to restore England. I don't know anything about the place, really. I mean, just tourism stuff, right? But I can help America, and you can help where you live. So get into these films. Watch the films first before you listen to my crap, and then maybe my stuff. It's more important you see the original films than listen to any of my junk. I understand that. I'm trying to get better and being more focused in my reviews. There's too much digression. I'm trying to cut those out in future episodes. Anyway, if you haven't been to deepthoughtsradio.com, please go. We have every video up there in some form or fashion. I want you guys to know I did retire the entire concept of the Chaos Report. I don't want to get caught up in that and just perpetuate the divide. We'll just watch it together, and I'll put little tidbits in other episodes as time comes by, because we're going to have more grand concepts. I want to deal with all of the negativity in the world from a positive standpoint if possible, right? Let's just focus on rebuilding society from the ground up, which is the charter of this show since 2015. And that just means us getting better at what we do. And we need to pick what we do because we get good at what we do, right? Don't lie because you'll get good at it. Tell the truth because you'll get good at it, right? So be careful what you pick, right? But if you're coming in on audio, there's video. If you're coming in video, there's audio. It's good in the car. If you got a little commute, you want to burn up some time. I have like 800 episodes by now. I have been knocking a few out. One of the episodes that got knocked off YouTube was called Legislated Beliefs. You might want to go check out the restricted list on the website. It says removed from YouTube. It's in the categories. That's all the episodes you definitely got to see because there's some sort of truth in there they don't want you to see. Some episodes get removed because they get retired because I redo them. So all the previous Mars episodes are gone. I've done 3 episodes on methods to cure cancer. The other ones are gone because the latest one is the latest one and it's better than the previous. I watch the old stuff and I cringe a little bit. The first 50 episodes are okay. I mean, first 40, I would say, are a whole different species. You got to see those on like BitChute or the other channel, which is season 1. Rumble has nearly all of them, but again, Rumble still has a crappy, defective search routine for the creators, so I can't find my own episodes on my own channel by typing in the exact title of the episode. I do not know what's wrong with these brain dead coders over there, but BitChute has got their act together. It's super easy for me to find my stuff and make changes. So if you want to see all the band stuff, it's usually linked in the website, so screw it. Just go to the website and see it, right? To all the PayPal and Patreon folks, thank you for hanging on and your random donations. It's awesome. The show does cost money to make every single time I do it. So I appreciate you guys. In the meantime, take care of yourself and someone else, and I'll see you in the next Deep Thoughts. Over and out.